Being a music director at any church can be tough at times, but one of the toughest jobs for any music director is to grow the skill of individuals on your team. So after many years of experiences growing worship teams, I wanted to share my simple system for growing the skill of your church worship team. Now, this is the last video of a series that I've done this year to help you elevate your church worship team. So if this series has helped you out or something you'd like to see me continue in the future, please let me know in the comments below. Huge thank you to Sweetwater Sound for sponsoring today's video. Before we learn this system, we need to evaluate ourselves as a leader. Now, before I start talking about this and get a bunch of comments saying, well, that's easy for you to say when you're a full-time music director at your church, I want to make this very, very clear. I am not a full-time music director at my church. Hence the reason I've created these systems and this system and have done these videos to help others in the similar situations. Everything that I've taught in the past couple of videos have been my personal solutions to frustrations of not being a full-time music director at my local church. So today I'm going to share how this system works, why it's important, and how to create it to help grow the skill of your worship team. Top-down mentorship system. Top-down mentorship is a system that I created some years back when I was trying to develop and grow a worship team, but didn't have enough time to actually teach each individual team member. This is a very simple system that many of you have probably seen used in other avenues, maybe in business or things like that. The way the system works is that you create a small music committee on your team that you would consider your team members with the strongest work ethic and takes the most initiative already on your team. This isn't just those who are quote unquote the most talented team members, but those who have a pretty decent skill, who work really hard and take the ministry very seriously. These will be your students, so to speak, the ones that you truly take under your wing and pour into and train very heavily for a period of time. This would probably be at least a year or so, teaching them leadership, music skills, communication, and how to teach others. During this process, you can encounter things like somebody on your committee moving away or something happening that causes them to no longer be able to be on the committee. If that happens, you can either replace them or just stick with the smaller committee. Then once this committee gets to a certain point, then you delegate the training of select team members to them instead of you alone. This doesn't mean you are no longer the leader or are just putting them in charge and not taking any responsibility. You will have to oversee the progress and consistently check in with your committee on how the training is going. So why does this work? When you use this top-down mentorship approach, you're doing something more than just training. You're creating culture. And to create culture, you have to have multiple levels of influencers that help lead the culture setting. By having a committee that is learning, growing, and becoming stable members of the team through action, they will start to grow in respect on the team that will lead them to becoming your influencers and teachers of the culture you're trying to create. My goal as a leader of my worship team is to create a team that is always growing in their skill as a musician or vocalist, in their spiritual walk, and in their mindset. Simply put, creating a team that is always growing means creating a team culture that thrives on growth. Now, how do we create this system at our own church? First thing you have to do is evaluate yourself and your team. Now, to create this system for your team, we have to be extremely objective and realistic about ourselves as a leader of our team. As a leader, your capacity or depth determines how far your team will go. So if you stop learning and growing, so will your team. What motivates people to grow is not what you tell them to do, but what they see you do. So the first thing you need to do is make a list of what you believe are your strengths and weaknesses as a leader. Anything that you've dropped the ball on or have had touchdowns in, those come out on these lists. Okay, now if you want to take this a step further, I would run your strengths and weaknesses list by someone who you think is either a mentor and or someone you trust their opinion like one. You don't want to run this list by someone who's always negative or someone who's always positive either, but someone who will actually be honest. Because this will help you determine what your true strengths and weaknesses are objectively. Then after that, do that same system with your team's strengths and weaknesses, then we'll be ready for the next step. Create a committee. Okay, now we create a committee. I'm not gonna lie, this part is probably one of the most crucial parts to this entire system working, because these are the people who will eventually become the influencers of your team's culture and decisions. So here's how I've personally determined how to select the right people for your committee. First, determine the stand-ins versus the stand-outs on your team. Stand-ins are people who kind of do the bare minimum and just want to help out every now and then, usually people who serve once per month and don't have a great work ethic and commitment to the team. Now, standouts are members who have a greater commitment on the team. They have a very strong work ethic. They may have some skill musically, but the real thing that determines a standout to me is if they're moldable and have initiative. When choosing your committee members, you want to make sure they fit in the standout category, or it can negatively affect the culture of your team. The next question you may have is, what does this committee do? Outside of the committee being the influential team members, this is a place where you can get their help by delegating tasks to help move the team forward, such as helping update Planning Center with correct lyrics and arrangements, getting their help with running rehearsals, getting their help to make decisions of new songs that the team learns, even getting their help determine song sets when scheduling for the month. You can delegate many tasks that helps push the team forward and alleviate the weight of the week-to-week tasks that you may have as the music director. Now, even though you as a music director or worship pastor will have the final call on decisions, what this committee allows for you to do is hear from and get a pulse of what the rest of the team would like to do and are experiencing. Sometimes one of the best motivators for the team is to give them a voice, so that's what this committee will become. This is why the committee should not exceed 5 or maybe 6 team members, because the smaller, the better. I currently have a team of about 30 people on my music team, and I only have a committee of 4 people. So don't feel like you need that many people if you have a small team. It could just be 1 or 2 depending on how many standout team members you have. Because the more voices you allow in can slow down or stagnate decisions to help the team. What can we tag with that? Because not every song is going to be have to say wonderful.
With Jesus, what a wonderful child.
Yeah.
Mighty God.
Oh yeah, that can go on Mighty God. You keep it on Mighty God. So now that we've created a committee, here's my system for training the team. Exposure plus opportunity plus coaching equals growth. Exposure. Expose your committee and team to what you want them to become or emulate musically and spiritually. I've done this before, taking my team to concerts or even conferences to expose them to really great musicians, leadership, and skills that I would like to see them model. If you're not able to take them to a concert or anything like that, you can always find and curate videos from YouTube or online of teams that you would like for your team to emulate. You can get as detailed as you want when giving your team members things to emulate and get better at, but just know that they have to find their voice in it. This is just to give them a direction to start in. Then once you get them exposed to the bar you're trying to reach, then you have to give them an opportunity to learn, which leads me to opportunity. Giving team members opportunities to help them grow can be the fastest way to grow skill, but also the most stressful as a leader. Because as a leader, we have to want people to fail so they can get better. But we really don't want our name to be associated with their failure, which I totally get, but there has to be a balance. My goal as a leader, which I believe should be every leader's goal, is to be a transformational leader. So when you join my team, you may start off mediocre in your skill, mindset, spirituality, work ethic, but when you leave my team, you'll have all of those skills higher than you've ever had. But to do this, you have to always be planning for your students or mentees to fall. So what I try to do is create a distance for how far they fall. You never want them to fall so far that they can't ever get back up. So our job is to create a safety net at a recoverable distance. The way I do this is by giving team members opportunities based on the impact of them failing. For example, my first level of training worship leaders on my team is to have them lead on a midweek service or a youth worship night. It's not that excellence in these services are lower, we still require a high level, but the fall is shallower. So if I put someone on a midweek service where we aren't live streaming and there's only 30% of our normal Sunday crowd there, if they fumble really bad and have a lot of mistakes, the likelihood that they can recover is a lot higher than if they were to fumble on our biggest service of the week. So allowing your team members to have the opportunities to fail in a semi-controlled environment is absolutely crucial to developing team members' skill. Then once your team members level up to the standard of your church, encourage them to get involved with music at other church events, church camps, conferences, to help get them some more experience working with other teams outside of your church, because that will help them develop even faster. Now, to give you an example of giving an opportunity, here's a clip of me guiding a new worship leader at a service at my church.
Alex, just be thinking about this while we're going through this next one, what the transition would look like. Since we're switching keys like that, Joseph would probably help lead you in that moment, just probably stopping and then starting the next one. That would probably be like a worship leader transition, so a vocal transition. So you'll just probably direct and we'll change behind you.
Now, when you have people have growth opportunities, it has to be paired with feedback. I do have to say, having growth opportunities without feedback is like giving someone a test but never giving them a grade, which leads me to my last point on training.
So today's video is sponsored by Sweetwater Sound, and I'll be honest, it really was a perfect pairing with this video, because this interface is what we were going to upgrade to, and we were able to partner with Focusrite and Sweetwater, and we got an 18i20. It has like inputs that you have in the front. Those are just combi jacks with like XLR and 1/4 inch. And then on the back, it has the same thing all the way up to 8 channels right there. And then it has these other outputs, these 1/4 inch outputs that we're gonna be using to go out of into our sound system with different tracks, so they can have different instruments coming from this one unit. If you are someone who's just like, well, I don't want to spend all this money on an interface that big, you don't have to get the biggest one if you don't need it. You can also check out the Focusrite. I think they have ones that are less channels, less outputs, but you just get what you need for your church. This is what we need because we're trying to really push a lot of the individual tracks to the sound system. That's the reason why we're using this one. But I love Focusrite. I've been using them for years, and they are so good and very, very reliable. This 4th generation has definitely got to be the best yet. So definitely go check them out in the description below. I'll have a link so you can check out all the specs.
If you're doing anything in ministry, somebody will always give you feedback in some kind of way. Rather, if it's overwhelmingly good or overwhelmingly bad, you're gonna get it. But when creating a team that is always growing, the only way you can always stay growing is if you're always receiving honest feedback. To be honest, this could be a hard one for team members to get on board with at the beginning. But the way I usually start off the conversation about feedback is before I even start developing them. I first ask the team member if they are even interested in being trained to do more on the team. Then if they say yes, I let them know the requirement for every developing leader on our team is that they have to have feedback sessions with me after every time they serve on the team. And what this does is sets the expectation for them to receive honest feedback consistently. Now, I was able to record a couple of instances of me doing these honest feedback sessions with a couple of worship leaders for some recent services we've had.
Did you feel like everything was smoother than you thought it would be?
Yeah, I did. Some of the transitions and all that. To me, that's kind of where sometimes transitions can be a little bit awkward.
So when you get in those flow moments, I feel like you naturally do this, like where you don't rush, you don't get ahead of yourself. That's good. That's a good thing. You're looking to see is like, okay, are we in a facilitating moment? Or are we pushing? Today, I feel like we're in that facilitating moment, and I was like, that's why I was like, okay, thinking of other songs, things, other places to go, because what happens is that you start repeating. It can start to kill the moment a little bit. But you didn't kill the moment, just knowing like, all right, I need to go somewhere else to fill this moment. I think something to also think about is like you said that I think you just repeated Jesus, that kind of thing. That's good. Yeah. Feel the power to do that. And then just remember, as a leader, we're following you. So like if you're going and you're just like, oh, I want to go here, just make sure you direct us on where you're going.
Yeah. Well,
anyways,
thank you, Travis. I appreciate it.
Oh yeah.
Quarterly music clinics. Now, I utilize all of these categories of training, exposure, opportunities, and coaching through an event that is a huge motivator for our team's culture, which is quarterly music clinics. So the way these work is that I take my list of strengths and weaknesses for the worship team that we created at the beginning of the system and determine what are some weaknesses from this list that we can work on and develop as a team. And from that list, I decide on certain things to teach on at this recurring quarterly team clinic. Now, my original intention for these clinics were to help create a culture where we did not have to have off-night rehearsals, but only 4 Saturdays within a year that we dedicated to developing and working on skills and not just songs. But this has now pushed the culture of excellence on our team to a new place. Sometimes we are working on how to create smoother transitions, how to play tighter as a band, how to blend our vocal parts better, literally anything that will help the team as a whole on developing their skills. Now, if you want to try this out at your church, here are a couple of things to note. I plan out all the dates for all 4 clinics the year prior to make sure everyone has the dates at the beginning of the year. Now, another thing, we usually plan for the day to last from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. with a lunch break in the middle. Another thing to note is if there's a skill that is out of my purview as a leader, I try to invite a guest clinician to help teach on that. And the last very, very important thing is you need to determine a strict policy for missing quarterly clinics, because if you don't, nobody would ever come to them. Now, I know this kind of seems a little extra to do as a volunteer leader, but I will say the time and effort spent on these type of clinics will give you back more than you could ever imagine. So I conclude with this last point: make the committee your mentors. Pretty much at this point, you've spent a good amount of time training and developing your committee. I would say at least a year or so. Now, the next level of their training will be to take on training mentees themselves. This doesn't mean they haven't trained people up until this point already as they're developing, but now they'll start to begin to take on new members as they come onto the team instead of it just being you. And once you start to do this, it becomes a lot easier to continue your culture of growth on your team. As your committee continues to grow as leaders, they are also growing leaders as well in the process, which starts a snowball effect of growth. I will say, going through this process, you may have people move away or team members start on your team and move to another ministry and such. But when that happens, take this same process and add a committee member or even start training another. Because when you are always training, you are always growing. So I definitely want to let you guys in on some equipment that's been very, very helpful from my church that we use. First is the Melonare SD2. We use this paired with the Phoenix Pro system, which are low budget wireless units for our in-ears, and they have been very, very good. These work really well if you're pairing it with the Phoenix Pro system to where they're not competing with the RF as harshly with, their own systems and things like that. This pairs well because it has different frequencies that you can choose, and it's just really been an overall really nice system. So if you guys are interested, definitely go check them out in the description below. I want to give a massive thanks to my committee members at my local church worship team. I could not run the team without them. They are amazing. Joseph Morden, Chloe Ward, Brianna Binkley, and Dana Stewart. Thank you guys. And I just want to make sure you guys know who they are. They're amazing. Definitely go check them out if you haven't already. Now, I know this was a lot of information in this video, so let me know if there's any pieces of this video that really helped you, in your team or things like that. Or if you already implement some of these things at your church, please let me know in the comments below. And also let us know if you have any things that you do at your team that really helps grow the culture of your team. Now, I don't advertise this too much, but if any of you guys are ever interested in having me help your music team or worship team or anything like that with an artist or even with your church, please let me know. I'll drop my email on the screen and also in the description below. Shoot me an email and let me know if you're interested in having me come out. Now, if you want to support this channel, there's a couple of ways you can. You can go to my website, travisdykesmusic.com, and purchase any of my products, tracks, or resources on there. They'll go back to this channel to help bring you videos. Or you can check out any of my affiliate links in the description below, to where if you click and make a purchase through any of those links, this channel gets a kickback to bring you more videos. Now, if you haven't watched any other videos in this series, you definitely got to watch this one right here.